Synchronicity is just another name for the thing that cannot be named, and I call it all nothingness, and you are invited to call it whatever you think is right when you find out what it is, who you are. But for the meantime, I'm offering you these terms, all nothingness and synchronicity, because there can be no existence, one existence, or non-existence without it being synchronized within itself. So the oneness, the big oneness, is synchronized within itself. It means that no matter what it is built out of, because it looks like this oneness is built out of something, and these some things are us and all the phenomena around us. So we see a bunch of separate phenomena that together compile one oneness. This is not the case. There is only one thing, one oneness, and it looks like it's divided. So when we talk about synchronicity, it's its essence, because you cannot be unsynchronized within yourself. It's like our body is in perfect sync with itself, so it can act. So the hand can move, thousand endless parameters work together so that my hand can move. So in a similar way, this oneness acts so in perfect synchronicity all the time. The only trouble is, and it's not really a trouble because this is the world of illusion and nothing is really a problem. But if we consider it a problem in our daily life, as humanity, we see ourselves separate from others. So we see our timeline, our story, ourself, and we believe that we should be somehow in sync with the others. So we try to take this reality and get in sync with it, and this is what the mind thinks that synchronicity is, because the mind is sure that it knows best what is best for me and how reality around me should act, how people around me should react to me and what I'm saying, and how people should act themselves. We believe the synchronicity will happen when certain things happen certain way, and this will be okay because our mind will approve it. It will be logical for it. It will make sense, and it will say, okay, this is according to a good plan that I like and I planned, and what a wonderful thing that everything is getting in synchronicity with it. So now I'm in sync. So this is the gap between our perception as humanity, what is synchronicity, and what synchronicity is really about. Because, as I said in my opening lines, synchronicity is the thing itself. It is us. It means that each and every moment that we experience in this reality as separate beings is that synchronicity through this specific angle. And this angle, our angle, is the only angle there is. There are no endless angles looking at the same moment, because this is what you experience. This is what is. In your perception as a separate entity, you embody all the other angles because you know about them. You embody every angle that you can think of, that you know in your reality, even if you don't experience it yourself. If you don't see through the eyes of the mosquito that comes to bite you. You don't see through its eyes, but the separate entity knows that there is a mosquito, or knows that there is space, or knows there are wars. Everything the separate entity knows compiles this eternal one moment. But for understanding what true synchronicity is, we should narrow ourselves to the present moment. The present moment as seen through our eyes, our separate eyes. Knowing that this separate moment is all the phenomena all at once. And this moment is synchronicity itself. So you can never be wrong. You are always placed in the exact place where you should be, where it's most powerful, most effective action in the wholeness of things. This is where you should be, no matter how small and insignificant it looks to you, because you are so used to it, to your daily routine and to the people, and you take everything like it's so ordinary, and there's nothing new in it, nothing majestic in it. You think, or humanity, I think, thinks that the eternal moment lies or is somewhere very beautiful and very serene, with some kind of landscape, and this is the place where everything you can relax into and everything is in perfect harmony. But the truth is that the synchronicity and the perfect moment and the eternal moment is the present moment, no matter how it looks. It disguises itself in separate forms. The present moment disguises itself in our reality as our reality, as people, as events, as news. And we take it for granted, and we don't appreciate this immensity of that moment. We don't understand how unbelievably complicated is our moment, because we look at it and we see through washed eyes. Our eyes are like washed with something, I don't know, that prevents us from looking at it really. So we don't dive into the moment. We don't experience the moment. The present moment is not always, and usually is not very comfortable for us, and we always argue with it. So we never accept where we are. It's always something missing, something wrong, something could have been done otherwise, look different, some things should have been said. Everything is so, we judge the moment we are so severe in our criticism to this moment, to the moment we are in. So when something happens to us, suppose there is a moment, and suppose it's not a pleasant moment, as so often it happens, so the normal response of humanity is argue with this moment till it's gone. So you are in a situation, and 90% of your effort and your passion and your abilities goes to an inner dialogue of judging that moment, criticizing that moment, thinking what could have been instead in that moment. Why did I get to that moment? What does it mean for my future? that I am in this moment, and the result is that you miss the moment entirely, and you don't act, or you act in a very limited way in this moment. And so you don't see the synchronicity in it, because, as I said, it's always synchronized. So you miss out on that moment and all its possibilities and all the present it brings you. It comes, the moment comes, it doesn't come, it's always there, but you experience it, you look at it, and instead of living it, you miss it. You go to the mind. The mind takes over, and in a very brutal way takes the moment from you and takes everything that could have happened in that moment from you. And the result is always what was supposed to be, because this is apparently your level of development. And when I say development, and I try not to use the words spiritual development, because people connect them to practices and to outer criteria as how to develop spiritually. And it's always something very mystical and something very in the mind. And I think that the spiritual development, if we can talk about spiritual development, is always in the presence of the ordinary life and how you react and act inside them. And the acknowledgement of what you see is the spiritual development. If you acknowledge the synchronicity in the present moment, you are developing spiritually, because you see it, you can see it in the present moment. You can see the oneness in this ordinary life. So this is the grandest thing you can do as a human being. Understand where you are and appreciate it, acknowledge it. So this, in my opinion, is spiritual development. Acting inside that moment, not letting the mind take over and make you miss the moment. Instead, looking at what is happening in this moment, no matter what is happening in this moment. It doesn't matter what happens in the moment, because in the absolute reality, nothing happens. It's all a game. It takes different forms, so it doesn't really matter what happens in the moment. If an ant is walking, it's the same as if someone wins a great competition and is having the greatest moment in his life. It's the same. It's different expression. It's the same oneness. If the ant will walk 3 more steps, and if someone will win something, the lottery, I don't know. It doesn't matter what happens in your life. It's the same expression. But we are all different, so we are looking through separate forms, and acknowledging what we are seeing is the most progress thing you can do to your mind, to the understanding of who you are. If you want to know who you are, it's very simple. Acknowledge who you are through looking at who you are in this separate form. Don't look anywhere else. It doesn't matter where you look. It's all you. Why not looking at you? Why not look at yourself, at your life, at the opportunities that your life brings you? It's like presents. This thing, this synchronicity, this us, talks to us constantly, all the time. It never stops. The synchronicity is us, and the suggestions or its expression is on the basis of a second to second. You can see it. You can really see the synchronicity every second. You just have to open your eyes to the present moment, because when the mind is busy with its endless struggle, you don't look at the moment, you miss the synchronicity. And I can say that before my shift, I used to love coincidences, because coincidences are like I think grand coincidences are like the tip of the iceberg of this synchronicity. You see the synchronicity sometimes when you have an amazing, extraordinary coincidence and you say, wow, how all the things got together, and now I'm experiencing something amazing that is very rare. So you look at this coincidence and you're filled with the respect for these forces, and then you forget about it and think back to your daily life, where no apparent coincidences, amazing coincidences happen. So before my shift, I used to love these coincidences and appreciate them very much. But I slowly started to see these coincidences more and more in my daily life before the shift, because I was more present in my life and I brought myself to the moment, just as a person, just because I cared about the moment that I was in. And I left the eye to its struggles, and just like a peasant that is working in a field, I was working very innocently and doing my job, what was needed to be done, and the people, I told them what they needed to hear, or the situation took from me. I just did it, and I got inside the moment. And then these coincidences started to be more and more evident, more and more frequent. And I was very amazed, because I felt like, wow, everything is so right, because I did that, this is happening, and now, wow, this is such a wonderful movement, and I started to see it. And then I got more and more deep in this feeling, and the synchronicity that I witnessed grew. It wasn't because something was changing in my outer reality, I just saw it. I just saw the synchronicity. It happens naturally when you see it, when you pay attention to this synchronicity, acknowledge it, celebrate it, listen to its messages, so it becomes more frequent. It becomes your way of life. And the final point is when, through great synchronicity, with a song in the radio, I was liberated. To live a synchronized life is not what you think it is. It's not what you want it to be. It's not what you think should happen in order to be in harmony. Because reality is so amazingly complicated and compiled of so many parameters. You can't know the grand plan. You don't know the grand plan. You are limited to your point of view. But there is a grand plan, and you have a very important role in it, and this is your role. And you should accept it. You should accept your role and live your role. Because people try to control their reality, and this is the way that things are in synchronized very beautifully. I wanted something, it happened, wow. This is synchronicity. I wanted something, it didn't happen, it's not synchronized. This is such a false perception of life. Everything that happens is your synchronicity, is your plan. It's sync with so many things. It has an effect on so many things. You can't grasp it. You can't know. So instead of fighting your circumstances and yourself, try to look where you are, acknowledge your synchronicity, your basic form, and act through it. And if you will be inside your form and inside the things that happen to you, if you'll do that, you will find out that you see more and more synchronized events in your life, and things will start to fall into place because you will be in the moment. It's not because you weren't synchronized before. You were synchronized to a different plan. Spiritual development is perfecting your separate form until you are in sync with the oneness, until you realize that your synchronism is this synchronism. It's one. And it speaks together. And it's such a wonderful movement. You will know that synchronicity happens through its signs along the way, gentle signs, and through its lightness, because synchronicity likes to play, likes to laugh, likes to compare things and make you think about them in a different way. It's the moment when you say, oh, this is funny, what happens now? I didn't see that coming, but it's so matching. It has such a wonderful sense of humor, this oneness. So its expression is synchronicity. You look at two parameters, two phenomena reacting to each other, and through the interaction you can see the synchronicity. And if you notice it, it's always so sophisticated, lovely, interesting, deep. And I found it to be very humorous. There is a lot of humor in this great cosmic joke. It's like the all-nothingness, or whatever you want to call it, disguised himself and said to humanity. Humanity said to itself, this is the world, this is me, this is matter, this is time. And then there is a small wink. It's like the oneness winks at you. After it says all these serious things, it winks. And this small wink is enlightenment.
Nothing good, nothing bad, nothing ventured, nothing gained, nothing stillborn or lost.